Okay, so hey guys, welcome back to another predictions video, and in today's video I'm predicting the Conlan versus Lopez fight. If you are new around here though and you haven't subscribed, please do so, like the video if you do need like the video, and let's get straight into it. So, going into this fight, Conlan is 18-1 with 9 KOs, and Lopez is 27-2 with 15 KOs. This fight is for the IBF World Featherweight title. Conlan's last fight was a win via TKO in round 1 versus Guerfi, and Lopez's last fight was a win via majority decision versus Warrington. Conlan's loss came via TKO in round 12 versus Wood last year, and Lopez's losses have come against Villa in 2019 and Montoya in 2018. In that kind of showing, it shows to an extent that it, in my opinion, takes more for Conlan to lose than what Lopez can, but of course Lopez has been on a very good run recently, and so of course he's going to be, as well as Conlan coming in off a first round victory, they're both going to be coming in with immense amounts of confidence, and that's what makes this fight so entertaining. Also on this card though is Kakasi versus Wierzinski for the IBO World Super Featherweight title, in which I think Kakasi will win via unanimous decision. I think that Kakasi is a very good fighter. I mean, he beat in his last fight as a very good fight versus Magnesi, and he won. And I think this fight is just another one of them fights just to make him look good, and I think it's destined for him to win this fight realistically, and just to keep him active. And then I think after this he'll probably go on to possibly look for another world title after this one. And then also on this card is Ball versus Lamati for the WBC Silver Featherweight title, in which I think Ball will win via TKO in round 3. Similar kind of position to the Kakasi fight. I think this opponent is there to be seen as a good opponent, but it's an unknown opponent that nobody really knows too much about, and has got a good record, but he's not really fought anybody of note. And I think Ball, the way that he's been dispatching of pretty much everybody he's been facing as of recent, and how dominant he has been looking, I think he's going to win this one convincingly again, and showcase to people why he should be in these big world title fights coming soon, and hopefully he will be. And I mean, a fight which I would really like to see him in would be a Kiko Martinez fight. I think that would be a great matchup for him at the moment and get him higher up in the world rankings, and I think kind of style wise it would be a similar kind of matchup, and it would be a very entertaining fight. And I think if Ball wins that one, then I think, I mean, even at the moment I believe that he is more than ready to be in a world title fight. But if he beats somebody like Kiko Martinez, obviously he's not been on the best of runs as of recent. I mean, to be fair, he did just fight a big fight himself and lost, but I think that that's definitely going to put him in a good position to then fight for a world title. But going back onto the Conlan Lopez fight, so Conlan is 5'8" with a 69-inch reach, and Lopez is 5'4" with a 66.5-inch reach, so a decent kind of height advantage there for Conlan. And I mean, he normally goes into the fights as quite a tall fighter, not a crazily tall fighter for the weight, but Lopez is seemingly always one of the smaller kind of fighters for the weight. Conlan is fighting in his home country of Northern Ireland, and so I always got to respect Lopez for wanting to, even though he is the champion, to come over and fight for the title wherever the other opponent wants. And it's similar to what Lara's doing and been doing with his fights, and I just got to respect it, to be honest, their kind of game mindset to come over. And especially in a Conlan home fight, most of his fights are in Northern Ireland, and the crowds he brings, they're huge, and I'm sure it'll be no difference for this one. And so credit to him for doing that, Lopez. But Conlan, of course, he's used to this. He's fought, like I said, in Northern Ireland quite a few times now, and so he's going to be more than comfortable with this pressure. Conlan as a fighter, he's a very good technical boxer. He's used to pressure, like I said. He's accurate, he's a sharp fighter, he's confident, he counterpunches very well, he sets traps very well, he has a high boxing IQ, he outboxes his opponents, he has very good fundamentals, and he's a fast starter. I think overall I really like him as a fighter. I think as I like a lot of good technical boxers. I always got to respect that kind of technical side of things, and I think he's definitely a better technical boxer than what Lopez is. I think the way that he can outbox a lot of his opponents is just so dominant, and that means that the way that he outboxes them means that even though he's maybe not the most powerful, it means that he's most of the time going to score knockdowns and knockouts at times because of just him being too dominant and it just being too much for his opponents. I mean, of course, he's coming off that round 1 TKO, but the fight before, I believe he got 3 knockdowns and managed to win comfortably. And even the loss versus Wood, he managed to knock down Wood once or twice, and so he's always just going to be outboxing, especially at the start, as he is a very good fast starter. The kind of negatives about him, he can get a bit too comfortable at times, meaning that he might let off the gas a little bit, which is seemingly what he did against Wood when he was winning and getting them knockdowns. He was just kind of letting off the gas a little bit. He can fade later on, and that's also something he did versus Wood. Wood is very good at coming better and improving later on in the fights, so him being able to fade later on is something that's never really good. He's not really an inside fighter, and that can mean that if he is fighting somebody maybe like a Nick Bull or Kiko Martinez or maybe a Lara, then it might be something a bit different. But to be honest, I wouldn't say that Lopez is really an inside fighter either, so realistically, stylistic wise, it might suit him in that aspect. And when he's actually under pressure and the fighter's putting the pressure onto him, not pressure as in like from the fans or that, but pressure from his opponent, then he can possibly struggle a little bit more. And especially as if it is later on, like what Wood was doing, that's probably to an extent why he managed to get stopped, and it was in such devastating fashion, because he does just struggle, maybe not panic, but just not be as comfortable in that position. Lopez as a fighter though, he's a patient, awkward kind of fighter. He hits from all angles. He's used to being in the away fighter, of course, like I mentioned. He likes the pressure. He seems to always step up under the pressure. He sets up well his shots. He has good combinations. He's looking to counter. He's very unpredictable, and he likes to switch to tempo. And when I say that, I mean that he'll go from being a really lively and aggressive kind of fighter and finding these angles to being just sitting back, relaxing, maybe not relaxing, but just being patient and waiting and just biding his time and seeing what openings come available. And because he does hit from all angles, it means he is going to be always a threat from every position if he's in, if that's off the back foot or the front foot or any kind of, even off is kind of, even when he's off balance, he's always going to be a threat. And he's a difficult kind of fighter, like I said, unpredictable, because he will throw from any kind of position. It shows that he is difficult to counter and difficult to fight against in general, to be honest. And I suppose his negatives, he can make fights harder than he needs to. I think there is times where he probably could step back and maybe be a little bit more patient at times than he maybe sometimes is, or it's the opposite way around, maybe he's too patient at times. And so he just needs to kind of try and find that perfect balance. He does often fight the opponent's fight, and that's not something that's always the best. That's why I think even against Warrington, he was in the later rounds fighting Warrington's fight, and then that's when Warrington was getting back into it, especially as Lopez was starting and fought so well early on in that fight. His game plan can go if he gets frustrated. Warrington, I mean, there's a lot of talk about him being a dirty fighter, but even in general, he's going to make fights difficult and he's going to aim to frustrate you, and it seems like Lopez kind of gave in to that frustration, and that's made him get fueled by that anger, which isn't always a bad thing, but it means that his game plan and his strategy did go later on. He does need space to be able to kind of perform well, and that is something that, like I said, it's something that Conlan is probably going to want as well, and so it's probably going to be a good kind of like mid-range kind of fight. And he does have quite obvious defensive flaws, and he's not overly technical. Like I said, I think Conlan is the much more technical boxer, but he is the favourite for this fight, and I think that Conlan will win via unanimous decision. I think Conlan will win the first probably 5 to 6 rounds, just by outboxing and keeping the mid-range, setting his own traps, And then I think Lopez might have a little bit of success come to maybe 7th, 8th, 9th, even championship rounds. But I think at that point, especially as it's his home and got Conlan's home, and I think he will do enough early on to be able to maybe give off a couple rounds as long as he doesn't get caught with a big shot. And then I think that Conlan will win via unanimous decision. And then who does he go on to fight next? Of course, he's with Top Rank, and so basically Ramirez is always going to be an option there. And I would love to see Ramirez getting that another world title shot. Obviously, he's got a world title at the moment, but going on to then slowly become more, slowly become undisputed and have them more big nights for him. So I wouldn't mind that. There was, of course, talk of a Wood rematch if Wood wins. Lara fight if Lara wins. There's always going to be talks around there. Or Warrington versus Conlan. I don't mind that matchup at all, and I'm sure that Eddie Hearn will entertain it at all. Eddie Hearn's already talked about doing that possible kind of link up with Matchroom and Top Rank anyway, so it wouldn't be surprising if that happens. And I mean, in general, I think with the current state of the featherweight division, the kind of top 5 maybe that people talk about being Wood, Lara, Lopez, Conlan, Warrington, I would probably rank them as Lara on top in my opinion. Obviously this all will change after this weekend if anything big happens. So Lara on top. Second I'd probably say is Wood. Third I'd say is Conlan. Fourth I'd say is Lopez. And fifth I'd probably say is Warrington. I might get a bit of hate for that, a bit of slack for that, but that's just my personal opinion. Of course, like I mentioned, it'll probably end up changing. And I mean, it wouldn't be long in my opinion until I see Nick Ball around there. And yeah, that is it for today's video. Hope you did enjoy. Like the video if you didn't like the video, subscribe if you're new, and thanks for watching.